The history of kings and rulers is filled with countless tales of grandeur, power, and often brutality. However, one of the most disturbing and gruesome stories is that of a king who was forced to eat his own flesh. This tragic tale, filled with elements of insanity, despair, and eventual self-destruction, paints a portrait of a ruler consumed by both his own hubris and a series of events that spiraled into unimaginable horror. The king, whose identity remains clouded in myth and legend, ruled a prosperous kingdom at the height of his reign. Initially, he was a ruler who demanded respect and adoration from his people. His kingdom flourished under his rule, with its wealth, military power, and cultural influence reaching unparalleled heights. However, as with many tales of rulers, the once great king's descent into madness began with a series of personal tragedies and increasingly erratic behavior. Historians speculate that it was the death of the king's beloved wife that first tipped him into a deep emotional turmoil. A powerful ruler can maintain control over their kingdom through many means. But when the personal losses begin to affect them, the consequences are often dire. Stricken with grief, the king's demeanor shifted drastically. He began to surround himself with sycophants, distant from the true counsel of his advisors. His kingdom, once united, began to fracture under the strain of his erratic decisions. Despite his emotional turmoil, the king was determined to maintain the appearance of control, and so he withdrew into a more private and secretive world, alienating those who had once been his closest allies. But it was not merely his grief that pushed him into madness. The king's mental state worsened as he became obsessed with immortality. Tales of alchemists, philosophers, and mystics who claimed to have discovered the secret to eternal life fascinated him. He began to believe that his rule could only be solidified if he could achieve immortality, ensuring that his name would echo throughout the ages. However, his obsession grew to dangerous extremes. His quest for immortality turned into a dark and twisted pursuit of power. The king, once a man of reason and diplomacy, became a shadow of his former self. He turned to dark rituals, consulting with occultists, and seeking out forbidden knowledge from the darkest corners of the world. Over time, his obsession with death and immortality grew, distorting his mind and breaking his once solid grasp on reality. The more he sought, the further he descended into a pit of despair and madness, where logic had no place and only the wildest notions could thrive. At the height of his madness, the king's thoughts turned to cannibalism as a means of prolonging his life. He believed that by consuming human flesh, he could absorb the life force of others, thus extending his own life indefinitely. This belief, rooted in ancient and often dangerous superstitions, pushed him to commit acts of horrific brutality, not just towards his enemies, but towards his own people. His attendants, troubled by the king's unusual wishes, attempted to dissuade him, but he remained steadfast in his beliefs. Convinced that his ritual would grant him a deeper understanding of existence, he proceeded with his plans. His most devoted followers, hesitant yet unwilling to question their ruler, participated in the ceremony despite their uncertainty. Some stories suggest that he personally engaged in the ritual, while others claim that he simply encouraged his subjects to be part of it, believing that their involvement would strengthen the kingdom's unity and his legacy. His attendants, deeply disturbed by the king's wishes, tried to dissuade him, but his mind was set on his conviction. Eventually, the ruler insisted on carrying out his ritual, believing that it would allow him to transcend mortality. His most loyal subjects, fearful of disobedience, felt compelled to take part in the ceremony, though they were filled with unease. Some accounts suggest that he himself participated, while others claim that he encouraged his followers to do so, hoping that this act would extend his influence beyond his own existence. The consequences of this decision were not only physical, but also psychological. Those involved in the ritual were overcome with an overwhelming sense of unease, their minds weighed down by the magnitude of the experience. Many viewed this moment as the turning point of the king's rule, one that altered the perception of his leadership forever. Rather than achieving the immortality he sought, the aftermath of the ritual led to widespread unrest. The king's actions caused his subjects to lose faith in him, leading to a period of turmoil and instability. His once thriving kingdom, admired for its strength and influence, struggled under the weight of uncertainty. Eventually, his rule came to an end as the people sought a new path forward, distancing themselves from the events that had shaken the very foundation of their society. In the end, the king's obsession with immortality cost him everything. Instead of securing his place in history as an eternal ruler, he became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition and the consequences of losing touch with reality. His name, though remembered, serves as a lesson in the perils of unrestrained power and the importance of wisdom in leadership. Today, the tale of the king who was forced to eat his own body continues to haunt the annals of history. It is a story of madness, of a ruler so consumed by his desire for immortality that he would go to any lengths, even at the expense of his own sanity and his kingdom. Though much of the story is shrouded in myth and mystery, the legend remains a chilling reminder of the human capacity for cruelty, obsession, and self-destruction. The king's fate serves as a lesson to those who would seek power at any cost, reminding us that sometimes the pursuit of immortality can lead to a dark and terrifying end.